All right, listener, you gave us quite the mix of material this time around. A lot about career exploration and how to navigate the modern job market. Are you maybe thinking about making a change?
Well, it's interesting because your sources point to more than just finding a job. They're really all about building a career you actually enjoy. Like
Mhm.
for the long haul, it's ambitious.
It is. It's like getting advice from two different friends. One who's been through it all and another who's a total career guru. But you know what they both say is the most important thing?
What's that?
Understanding yourself, really knowing what makes you tick.
That's where it gets really interesting. If your resume could talk, has this exercise called 5 W's and 6 Squares. It's meant to help you figure out your core values by looking back at your past choices.
Okay, I'm
The
intrigued.
5 W's are who, what, where, when, why. Basically, you analyze those key aspects of a situation,
You say.
and then you create a vision board. It's called the 6 Squares, and it represents your ideal life.
Oh, I love vision boards.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Even super experienced people can be surprised by what they discover about themselves.
Totally.
Both books have stories about executives taking assessments and realizing they had hidden strengths or weaknesses they never even knew about. That makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
We all have blind spots for sure,
Mm,
and sometimes a little outside perspective can be incredibly valuable and eye-opening.
totally. It's like that KF4D concept from Lose the Resume.
Yes, knowing your competencies, traits, drivers, and experiences.
Wait, okay, break that down for me. What does that even mean?
It means it's not just about, those skills you list on your resume. It's about understanding what motivates you, what kind of work environment you actually thrive in. That's how you find a job that's truly a good fit, not just a paycheck.
Okay, that makes total sense. And speaking of resumes, I know that's probably on your mind, listener. You're probably thinking, give me the resume advice. But both sources have a kind of controversial take on resumes.
Yeah, they both say that the resume is just a small part of the job search. Lose the resume even goes so far as to say it's only 10% of the process.
Wait, really? Only 10%? That's surprising.
Right.
So what's the other 90% then?
It's about so much more than just listing your skills and experience. It's about networking, building relationships, and showcasing your personality. Remember that story from Lose the Resume about the executive who was so convinced he was a shoo-in for CEO, but he completely bombed the assessment
Oh, yeah.
because he just resisted the process?
Oh, sure. I remember that one.
Yeah, that's a powerful reminder that even at the top, self-awareness and a willingness to learn are crucial.
Totally. So if the resume isn't everything, what about networking? Everyone says it's so important, but both of our sources seem to be against that whole stock people with your resume approach at events.
Right. Definitely not the way to go. Lose the resume.
Yeah.
Has a whole section called Networking Your References, and it suggests connecting with former colleagues and mentors long before you actually need a favor.
So it's more about building genuine relationships than just collecting names for a job application.
Exactly. It's about seeking advice,
Yeah.
insights, different perspectives on your career. And sometimes, those conversations can lead to unexpected opportunities.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not just about sending out resumes and hoping for the best. It's about being strategic, building relationships, really putting yourself out there.
And being open to feedback, Lose the Resume, talks about seeking validation from outside sources.
Okay.
It's not about fishing for compliments.
Yeah.
It's about getting honest feedback from people who actually know you well and can offer valuable insights into your strengths and weaknesses.
So maybe a former boss's opinion could help you see opportunities you hadn't even considered before.
Exactly. Sometimes those outside perspectives can be incredibly valuable.
Okay, I'm definitely sensing a theme here.
Mhm.
Both of our sources are all about being proactive and taking control of your career rather than just waiting for things to happen.
That's exactly right. And they both go beyond just getting hired. They also talk about how to actually thrive in your new role and make a real impact. Lose the Resume even has a list of top 10 tips for your new job.
Ooh, tell me more. What kind of things are on the list?
Well, things like being indispensable to your boss, always being willing to learn and networking within the company. It's all about going above and beyond and constantly proving your worth. It really flips the script on what it means to be successful in your career.
I love that. It's not just about getting the job, it's about what you do once you're there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And both sources emphasize the importance of continuous learning. If your resume could talk, even has this really cool example of a grad student who got amazing career advice from a lab supply technician.
Wow, that's a great story. It makes you think about all the potential mentors we might be overlooking in our own lives.
And that ties back beautifully to Lose the Resume's emphasis on becoming an outlier. Someone who doesn't just follow the crowd, but constantly pushes themselves to learn, adapt, and stand out.
Okay, listener, we've covered a lot of ground here, but I think we're just scratching the surface. Are you ready to dive even deeper?
One thing that really struck me about If Your Resume Could Talk is how much it emphasizes experiential learning. It's not just about what you learn in school. It's about actually getting out there and trying things.
So less about having a perfect GPA and more about internships or like side projects where
Right.
you can get some real world experience.
Exactly. And it even talks about how valuable those experiences can be for people later in their careers, not just for students. It goes back to that idea of continuous learning that we were just talking about.
Right, because the job market is constantly changing, so we need to be constantly learning new things. Just to keep up, if your resume could talk, even talks about like figuring out how you learn best. Like, are you a visual learner? Do you prefer hands-on experience or more formal classroom settings?
It's all about knowing your strengths and weaknesses and finding ways to play to your advantages. Kind of reminds me of this section in Lose the Resume where they talk about the importance of mentors.
Oh yeah, finding someone who can like guide you and offer advice from their own experience.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be someone super high up in their career. Remember that story from If Your Resume Could Talk about the grad student who got career-changing advice from a lab supply technician?
That's right. Sometimes the best mentors come from the most unexpected places. But I think a lot of people struggle with knowing how to even find a mentor.
Well, Lose the Resume has some really practical advice about that. They say it's all about building genuine relationships and not being afraid to ask for help.
Okay, so it's more about connecting with people you admire and respect, and less about formally asking someone to be your mentor.
Exactly. And it's also about being willing to give back and mentor others yourself. It's a two-way street. You can learn a lot from people you mentor.
That makes sense. It's like that saying, when one teaches to learn.
Exactly. So we've talked about knowing yourself, building relationships, continuous learning, but there's one more piece of the puzzle that both sources talk about, and it can be a bit of a tough pill to swallow.
Ha, oh, what's that?
Acknowledging your gaps, those areas where you might need to gain more experience or knowledge to reach your career goals.
Okay, that does sound kind of daunting. Like, what if I realize I'm totally missing some key skills?
Well, that's where the self-awareness piece comes in. It's not about beating yourself up for what you don't know. It's about recognizing those areas for growth and creating a plan to address them.
So how do you actually do that? Where do you even start?
Both sources have some great advice. If Your Resume Could Talk suggests everything from taking on special projects at work to pursuing certifications or additional training.
So it's about being proactive and seeking out opportunities to learn and grow, even if it's outside of your current job description.
Exactly. And Lose the Resume reminds us that learning from others is crucial. That's where mentors can be so helpful. They can share their experiences, offer guidance, and even connect you with opportunities to gain new skills.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's be real for a sec. The job market can feel super unpredictable and chaotic sometimes. How do you deal with that feeling of uncertainty when you're trying to plan your career?
That's a great question, and it's definitely something that both of our sources address. They emphasize the importance of being adaptable and resilient. The job market is constantly evolving, and the skills that are in high demand today might be obsolete tomorrow.
So how do you stay ahead of the curve?
If Your Resume Could Talk has a whole section on navigating uncertainty, and they talk about the importance of reframing your thinking. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about viewing setbacks as learning opportunities and using those experiences to fuel your growth.
That's such a great way to look at it. It takes the pressure off of having to be perfect all the time.
Exactly. And they share some personal anecdotes of times when things didn't go according to plan and how they actually learned some of their most valuable lessons from those experiences. It's a good reminder that everyone faces challenges and setbacks. It's how we respond to them that truly matters.
You know, one thing I hear a lot from listeners is that they feel stuck in their current career, but they're scared to make a change. Is there anything in these sources about that whole career pivot thing?
Absolutely. If Your Resume Could Talk actually has a really insightful section on pivoting. They emphasize that it's totally possible and often necessary to reinvent yourself throughout your career.
So how do you know when it's time to make a change?
They talk about paying attention to those gut feelings. If you're feeling unfulfilled, unchallenged, or simply bored in your current role, it might be time to explore other options.
But making a big career change can feel so overwhelming. Where do you even start?
If Your Resume Could Talk suggests starting small. Try getting some exposure to the field you're interested in, maybe by taking a class, attending a conference, or even just talking to people who are already working in that area.
So it's about dipping your toes in the water before taking the full plunge.
Exactly. And they even suggest looking for opportunities within your current company first, as that can make the transition a little smoother.
Okay, that's a great tip. It's less risky, and you can leverage your existing relationships and knowledge of the company. But what about when you're ready to actually start applying for jobs in a new field? How do you explain that career change to potential employers?
If your resume could talk, has some really helpful advice on that. They talk about the importance of framing your experiences in a way that highlights their relevance to the new field you're pursuing.
So it's about showcasing those transferable skills and demonstrating that you're a quick learner.
Exactly. And they even provide some concrete examples of how to tweak your resume to make it more appealing to hiring managers in a different industry.
That's so helpful because I think a lot of people get hung up on the idea that they need to have years of experience in a specific field to be considered for a job.
Right. But the truth is that many skills are transferable across different industries. It's all about highlighting those connections and telling a compelling story about your career journey. And Lose the Resume also adds that staying informed about the industry you're interested in is key. Reading industry publications, attending conferences, and networking with people in that field can all give you valuable insights and help you make a more informed decision about whether a career pivot is right for you.
That's such a good point. It's about doing your research and really understanding what you're getting into before making a big change. But let's be real, career changes, even small ones, can be scary. It's like stepping outside of your comfort zone and embracing the unknown.
Absolutely. But both of our sources seem to agree that those seemingly drastic career changes often happen gradually in small steps. If your resume could talk, even shares examples of people who made significant career shifts, like a lawyer who became a yoga instructor and a doctor who became a comedian.
Wow, those are some pretty big changes.
Right, but they didn't happen overnight. They started with small steps, taking a class, exploring a side hustle, networking with people in the field they were interested in. And over time, those small steps led to a major career transformation.
That's so inspiring. It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. And both sources really emphasize the importance of finding your tribe. Those people who support you, encourage you, and help you navigate the ups and downs of your career journey.
I love that. It's like having your own personal cheerleading squad.
Exactly. And it could be friends, family members, mentors, colleagues, or even online communities of people who share your interests and goals.
Okay, so we've talked about knowing yourself, building relationships, continuous learning, acknowledging your gaps, navigating uncertainty, and even making career pivots. But what about the actual nuts and bolts of landing a job? What kind of advice do our sources offer about things like resumes, cover letters, and interviews?
Well, Lose the Resume,
Mm.
as you might guess from the title, has a lot to say about going beyond the traditional resume. They actually recommend creating a career portfolio that showcases your skills and experience in a more dynamic and engaging way.
Ooh, what does that look like?
It could be a website, a blog, a portfolio of projects, or even a collection of testimonials from past clients or colleagues. The idea is to create something that truly represents who you are and what you have to offer, rather than just relying on a static document.
I love that. It's so much more creative and personalized.
Yeah. Right. And they also talk about the importance of tailoring your materials to each specific job you apply for.
Mm.
It's about doing your research, understanding the company's culture and values, and highlighting the skills and experiences that are most relevant to that particular role.
So it's less about having a one-size-fits-all resume and more about really putting in the effort to understand what each employer is looking for.
Exactly. And that goes for cover letters, too. Lose the Resume actually recommends thinking of your cover letter as a sales letter, where you're selling your skills and experience to the hiring manager.
Okay, I've never thought about it that way before, but it makes total sense. You have to convince them that you're the best person for the job.
Exactly. And they offer some really helpful tips on how to write a compelling cover letter that will grab the hiring manager's attention and make them want to learn more out to you.
I'm guessing they also have some advice about networking and making genuine connections, since that seems to be a big theme in the book.
Absolutely. They dedicate a whole chapter to networking, and they really emphasize the importance of building relationships based on mutual benefit. It's not about what you can get from others, it's about how you can help them and add value to their lives.
So it's less about networking and more about just building real, genuine relationships with people.
Exactly. And they offer some really practical tips on how to approach networking, from attending industry events to connecting with people online. And remember, they're big on seeking validation from outside sources.
Right. It's not about fishing for compliments. It's about getting honest feedback that can help you improve your job search strategy.
Exactly. And sometimes those outside perspectives can open your eyes to opportunities you hadn't even considered before.
Okay, so we've talked about resumes, cover letters, and networking, but what about the dreaded interview? Any tips on how to handle that nerve-wracking experience?
Lose the Resume dives deep into the psychology of interviewing and reminds us that it's totally natural to feel nervous. They even compare it to feeling like you're back in sixth grade.
Ha! I can definitely relate to that feeling.
They offer some great tips on how to prepare for an interview, from researching the company and the interviewer to practicing your answers to common interview questions. And they also talk about the importance of being yourself and letting your personality shine through.
So it's less about trying to be perfect and more about being authentic and engaging.
Exactly. They remind us that interviewers are people too, and they're looking for someone who is not only competent, but also a good fit for the team and the company culture.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about things like body language and first impressions? I feel like those can make or break an interview.
Lose a Resume actually has a whole section on making a great first impression in those crucial first 7 seconds. They talk about everything from your attire to your handshake to your overall demeanor.
Wow, 7 seconds. That's not a lot of time to make a good
I
impression.
know, right? But they offer some really helpful tips on how to project confidence and enthusiasm from the moment you walk in the door. And they also talk about the importance of active listening and asking thoughtful questions.
So it's not just about answering the interviewer's questions, it's also about showing that you're genuinely interested in the role and the company.
Exactly. And they even offer some advice on how to handle those tricky, unexpected questions that interviewers sometimes throw your way.
Like the dreaded, tell me about your greatest weakness question.
Exactly. They say it's not necessarily about having a perfect answer. It's about being honest, self-aware, and demonstrating that you're always striving to improve.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about after the interview? Is there anything you should do to increase your chances of getting the job?
Both sources emphasize the importance of following up with a thank you note. It's a simple gesture that can go a long way in showing your appreciation and reinforcing your interest in the role.
Okay, so it's not just about saying thank you, it's also about reiterating your qualifications and expressing your enthusiasm for the opportunity.
Exactly. And it's a chance to address any questions or concerns that came up during the interview. Lose the Resume. Even recommend sending a handwritten note as it can really stand out from the crowd.
Okay, that's a great tip. I'm definitely going to start doing that.
And they also talk about the importance of being patient and persistent. The job search can be a long and winding road, and it's important to stay positive and keep putting yourself out there.
Okay, I'm feeling so much more prepared for my next job search. But what about once you actually land the job? What kind of advice do our sources have about thriving in your new role and setting yourself up for success?
Lose the Resume has a whole section on this, and they offer some really insightful tips. They talk about the importance of being proactive, taking initiative, and constantly seeking opportunities to learn and grow.
So it's not just about doing your assigned tasks, it's about going above and beyond and showing that you're a valuable asset to the team.
Exactly. And they even talk about the importance of networking within the company, building relationships with colleagues in different departments, and understanding the bigger picture of how the organization operates.
That's a great point. It's about expanding your knowledge base and positioning yourself for future growth opportunities.
Right. And they also remind us that being indispensable to your boss is crucial for long-term success.
Okay, but what does that even mean?
It's not about being a yes man. It's about understanding their priorities, anticipating their needs, and delivering results consistently.
So it's about building a strong, trusting relationship with your manager and demonstrating your value as a key contributor to the team.
Exactly. And they even offer practical tips on how to give and receive feedback. Effectively manage up and navigate those inevitable workplace challenges with grace and professionalism.
Wow, this is all such great advice. I'm definitely going to keep these tips in mind as I continue my career journey.
And remember, learning doesn't stop once you land the job. Lose the Resume emphasizes the importance of staying curious, seeking out new challenges, and constantly expanding your knowledge and skills.
Okay, that makes sense. The job market is always changing, so we need to be constantly learning and adapting to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. It's about embracing a growth mindset and recognizing that there's always more to learn. And that's a great segue into one of the key takeaways from Lose the Resume, the importance of being an outlier.
Ooh, what does that mean?
It means being someone who stands out from the crowd by thinking differently, challenging the status quo, and constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So it's about being a leader, an innovator, and a driving force for positive change within the organization.
Exactly. And they share inspiring anecdotes about successful individuals who embraced their unique talents and made a significant impact in their respective fields.
That's so motivating. It's a reminder that we all have the potential to achieve great things if we dare to dream big and take bold action.
And they leave us with a powerful thought. Your career journey is a reflection of you, your values, your choices, and your commitment to growth.
It's a reminder that we're all in the driver's seat and we have the power to shape our own destinies.
Absolutely. And that's a great place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to explore.
Stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive, where we'll unpack even more insights from your sources and offer some final thoughts to help you navigate your career journey with confidence and clarity. Welcome back, listener. I don't know about you, but I am feeling super energized after those first 2 parts of our deep dive. Like, I'm ready to tackle my to-do list, career-wise, and everything else.
Well, that's exactly what your sources aim for.
Yeah.
To give you not just information, but the motivation to actually act on it.
Yes.
If your resume could talk, it has this whole section on like landmark decisions.
Okay.
Those moments where you have to step outside your comfort zone and make a big choice.
Oh, like going back to school or finally quitting that job you hate.
Those are definitely big ones.
Yeah.
But even smaller decisions like attending a networking event when you're feeling shy can have a huge impact on your career. If your resume could talk shares this personal story about how they landed their first real job, all because they pushed themselves to go to a career fair even though they were terrified.
That is so true. Sometimes the things that scare us the most are the ones that lead to the biggest breakthroughs. And speaking of being open to new experiences, lose the resume really stresses being adaptable, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The job market is constantly changing, so you kind of have to be willing to adjust your plans and pivot when necessary.
Yeah.
They even tell the story about a finance exec who had his sights set on becoming CEO, but completely failed the assessment
Oh, no.
because he wasn't open to feedback and change.
That's a good reminder that sometimes our preconceived notions about our career path might not align with where our real strengths lie. Like maybe that CEO track wasn't the right fit for him after all.
Exactly. And if your resume could talk, actually recommends checking out the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Have you ever used that resource before?
It rings a bell, but I'm not totally sure. Refresh my memory.
Okay, so it's full of data about different career fields, their projected growth, typical salaries, and even the kinds of skills they require. Super helpful for like exploring different paths and seeing where your interests might align with emerging opportunities.
Oh, wow, that sounds like a really practical tool. So it's not just about dreaming big, but also understanding the realities of the job market and making informed decisions.
Exactly. And both your sources talk about the importance of setting goals, both short-term and long-term. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? Having a clear vision can really help you stay focused and motivated, even when things get tough.
Okay, so we need to have a vision be adaptable and use tools like the Occupational Outlook Handbook to make smart decisions. Anything else?
We'll lose the resume. Reminds us that even after you land your dream job, the work isn't over. You have to keep striving to grow and improve, build strong relationships with your colleagues, and become an invaluable asset to your team.
So it's not just about getting the job, it's about excelling in it and building a solid foundation for your future career growth.
Exactly. And they even talk about becoming indispensable to your boss. It's not about being a yes man, but about understanding their priorities, exceeding their expectations, and becoming their go-to person for important projects.
Okay, listener, I think we've uncovered some serious gems from your sources. It's so clear that you're not just looking for a job. You're looking to create a career that's truly fulfilling and meaningful.
And what's really cool is that both sources emphasize that the job search itself is a journey of self-discovery. It's a chance to reflect on your values, your skills, and what you truly want out of life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's one final thought for you to ponder. Imagine you're at the end of your career, looking back on all that you've accomplished. What do you want your legacy to be? What kind of impact do you want to have made on the world? Let those questions guide you as you navigate this exciting journey called work.
And remember, the journey is just as important as the destination. Enjoy the process, learn from your experiences, and never stop believing in yourself.
It's been such a pleasure exploring these sources with you, listener. We're so excited for you and all the amazing things you're going to accomplish. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep reaching for your dreams.